Just get to 18. Nobody tells you what fatherhood actually costs. They tell you about the nappies. They tell you about school shoes. They tell you about Christmas presents. They even tell you about birthdays. They say kids are expensive. No. Kids aren't expensive. Divorce is expensive. Separation is expensive. Solicitors are expensive. False hope is expensive. Trying to stay in your child's life while everyone treats you like a delivery driver with emotional baggage, that's expensive. Because when you first become a dad, you don't know any of this, do you? You just stood there in the hospital room, absolutely useless. The baby comes out and everyone's crying. The mum's exhausted. The midwife knows what she's doing. And you're stood there holding a bag from Tesco like you've contributed to the miracle of life because you've remembered Lucozade and a phone charger. Then they hand you this tiny little person and that's it. Your life is over. Done. Not in a bad way, just over. The old you dies instantly. Your hobbies disappear, your sleep disappears, your money disappears, your dignity disappears. You go from being a man to being a human cash point with back pain. But you love it. You do. You love it. You moan, obviously, because you're British. That's how we show joy. This is lovely, absolute nightmare, but the best thing ever happened to me. I'm fucking knackered. That's fatherhood. You learn the basics, how to change a nappy, how to warm a bottle, how to survive 3 hours sleep on one suspicious sausage roll. You learn that babies can sense when you've sat down. They know they can be asleep for 45 minutes, dead to the world. You lower yourself onto the sofa like a bomb disposable expert, and suddenly, immediately, how do they know that? How do they know? Are they Bluetooth? And when they become toddlers, it gets worse. Toddlers are basically drunk people with no job. They fall over, they shout, they cry because toast has corners. They throw up on themselves and then ask for a biscuit. You spend your entire life negotiating with somebody who thinks trousers are an attack on their human rights. But it's beautiful. Mad, but beautiful. Because you're building something. A family, a home, a life. You think, yes, this is it. I've done it. You don't imagine the court forms. You don't imagine the solicitors. You don't imagine sitting in a car park trying not to cry because contact's been cancelled again. You don't imagine any of that. Because why would you? Nobody has a baby and thinks, yep, one day I'll need a judge to confirm I'm allowed to be a father. That's not in the brochure. Then the relationship breaks down. Like it's clean. The relationship broke down. The washing machine broke down. Like somebody can pop over and tighten a pipe and suddenly everyone's emotionally regulated again. No, it doesn't break down. It explodes. And when it explodes, dad often becomes a strange little category. Not gone, not dead, not irrelevant, just reduced. You were a dad. You were dad. You're now contact. That's a disgusting word, by the way. Contact. Like your customer service department. Your child is available between 10 and 4, subject to terms and conditions. Ping, ping. You go from living with your child to asking when you can see them. That sentence alone should make people feel sick. Asking when you can see your own child. And you do ask, politely at first, because you're trying to be reasonable. You send messages like you're applying for planning permission. Hi, just wondering whether I could possibly have her Saturday. No worries if not. Totally understand. Hope you will. What you want to say is, she's my fucking child, not a fucking timeshare in Tenerife. But you don't. You don't. Because if you react aggressive, if you argue, you're difficult. If you get upset, you're unstable. If you stay calm, you clearly don't care. Brilliant system. Designed by people who think human emotion is something you can file under Section B. And then comes the advice. And everyone's got advice. Everyone. Not people who've never been through it suddenly become experts. Just stay positive. Thanks, Linda. Thanks for that. Thanks, love. I'll tell that to the direct debit for the solicitor. Just keep showing up. Yes, I am. I'm just showing up. That's why I'm bankrupt and I look like I've slept in a skip. Just be patient. Patient, yes. I've been patient so long I could be available on the NHS. And then there's the big one. The phrase everybody gives you like it's wisdom. Just get to 18. Yes, just get to 18. 18, the magic number. The promised land. The promised land indeed. The magical age. The golden gates. The day the clouds part, the angels sing and common sense finally walks into the room wearing a little sash. Just get to 18, mate. So you do. You build your life around that sentence. You survive birthdays you weren't invited to. Christmas mornings when you're pretending to be cheerful while your chest feels like someone's parked a van on it. Father's Day where the silence is so loud it could smash a glass. You keep going. You pay maintenance. You pay for extras. You pay for trips. You pay for clothes. You pay for every little bit here and there because you're dad and dad pays. Even when dad can't afford it. Even when dad's eating beans like he's a hostage in a hostage situation. Even when dad's electric meter is looking at him like, are you sure, big man? Are you sure? You pay because it's your child and you don't want them to feel the cost of the adult failure. And that's the bit nobody sees. A lot of fathers don't stop loving. They just run out of money in public, quietly, embarrassingly, with a smile. You keep her bedroom ready, even if it barely gets used. You keep clothes in the drawer. You keep presents hidden. You keep hope alive like an idiot. Because hope is lovely, isn't it? It's lovely. Hope is what gets you out of bed. Hope is also what repeatedly kicks you in the bollocks and says, same time next year, mate. And every year you say, just get to 18. Wait till they're 18. When they're 8, just get to 18. When they're 12, just get to 18. When they're 15 and everything's really complicated, just get to 18. You imagine it. You can't help it. You imagine the conversation. You imagine them saying, Dad, I get it now. You imagine the fog lifting. You imagine all those years suddenly meaning something. You imagine the truth arriving with a suitcase. Then 18 comes, and what happens? Do the heavens open? Does justice arrive? Does life suddenly become fair? No, because life isn't a Disney film. This is Britain. It rains. Petrol's expensive and emotionally immature. Adults still have phones. 18 arrives. And sometimes the birthday present isn't freedom. Sometimes the birthday present is a choice no child should be given. Not said like a movie villain, obviously. Nobody stands at the top of the stairs in a cape going, choose your father and lose everything. Life's more subtle than that, crueler, and not always shouted, sometimes implied. Sometimes it's dressed up as a practicality. Well, you're 18 now. You're legally an adult. You can make your own decisions, which sounds mature, sounds really mature, until you translate it. Choose carefully because your comfort, your home, your routine, your lifestyle, your security, and everything familiar to you may depend on you making the correct emotional decision. Happy birthday. Here's a cake. Here's a card. Here's a psychological hostage negotiation. Enjoy adulthood. That's not parenting. That's emotional taxidermy. Stuffing control and calling it love. Because what is an 18-year-old supposed to do? They're legally an adult, yes, but they're still young. They still need guidance. They still need stability. They still need somewhere safe to fall apart. At 18, I thought a pension was something that happened to other species. At 18, most people can't cook rice without creating a crime scene. Apparently, they are old enough to carry the emotional consequences of a broken family on their back like a fucking fridge freezer. And Dad's supposed to compete with what? The established house, the lifestyle, the routine, the bedroom, the comfort, the history, the money he hasn't got because he spent years paying to remain involved. That's the punchline. Dad has been financially drained by the very fight staying in the child's life, then gets judged for not being able to offer the same lifestyle. That's like breaking someone's legs and then mocking them for not winning the marathon. Come on, Dad. Come on. Where's the big house? Gone. It's in the solicitor's car park. It's in the child maintenance payments. It's in the petrol receipts. It's in the birthdays. It's in the Christmases. It's in the years of trying not to collapse. It's in every little payment nobody noticed because fathers are expected to provide silently, suffer silently, and then apologize for not smiling enough. And still, he keeps the door open because that's fatherhood, not the Instagram version, not matching pajamas and pumpkin patches, real fatherhood. The ugly version, the version where you're skint, tired, angry, heartbroken, and still careful not to let your child feel blamed because the child is never the burden. That's the rule. The situation is the burden. The conflict is the burden. The adults are the burden, but never the child. So you swallow things, years of things. You swallow the unfairness. You swallow the lies. You swallow the cancelled plans. You swallow the feeling of being replaced by convenience. You swallow the rage until it gives you indigestion and twitch in your left eye. And people say, why are you so bitter? Bitter? I'm not bitter. I'm well seasoned. And there is a big difference. Bitter is when you want revenge. Seasoned is when you've seen enough bullshit to identify it by smell. And the bullshit is this. People love saying children need both parents until one parent becomes inconvenient. Then suddenly it's complicated. Suddenly it's nuanced. Suddenly everyone's concerned about not forcing things. Funny how that works. A father has to prove himself forever. Everybody else gets assumed. He has to prove he's safe. He has to prove he's stable. Prove he's committed. Prove he's not giving up. Prove he's not angry. Prove he's not too emotional. Prove he's emotional enough. Prove he can provide. Prove he can cope. Prove he can take rejection with the face of a monk and a bank balance of a divorced magician. And after all that, after years of being told just get to 18, he finds out 18 was never the finish line. It was just another room with another locked door and another person saying, have you tried being patient? That's when something changes in a man, not always loudly, sometimes very quietly. He stops believing in fairy tale endings. He stops thinking the truth automatically wins. He stops expecting people to do the decent thing and just because it's obvious. And that can either destroy him or discipline him. That's the crossroads. Because you can become bitter. You can become obsessed. You can spend the rest of your life arguing with ghosts and nobody would blame you. But it won't save your child and it won't save you. So what do? You become steady, not soft, not weak, steady. You tell the truth without poisoning the child. You stay available without begging them to be chosen. You keep your dignity even when the situation is humiliating. You build your life back with whatever scraps are left. You become the kind of father who doesn't need to win the argument today because he's thinking in decades. That's hard. That is the hardest bit. Not reacting, not sending the message, not saying the thing, not turning pain into a weapon. Because real fatherhood doesn't use a child as evidence. He protects them from the full ugliness of what happened. Even if it means being misunderstood, even if it means looking like the weaker one, even if it means waiting longer than any human being should have to wait. And that's the tragedy. The child turns 18 and everyone calls them an adult, but the father is still doing the same thing he did when they were born, standing there, useless in some ways, powerless in others, holding something fragile, trying not to drop it. Only this time, it's not a baby, it's hope, and it's heavier. So no, the price of fatherhood isn't nappies, it isn't school shoes, it isn't birthdays, it isn't maintenance, it isn't solicitors. Those are just invoices. The real price of fatherhood is loving someone more than you love your own peace, and still having to act calm while life tests how much dignity you've got left. It's spending years telling yourself, just get to 18. Then 18 arrives, and you suddenly realize the job never ends, because parenting doesn't expire at midnight. Love doesn't stop because the law says the child is now an adult. A decent parent doesn't look at the child and think, my legal obligation now is complete. That's not love, that's admin. If your idea of parenting ends the second the law stops forcing you, you were never a parent. You were serving a sentence. A father's job doesn't end at 18. It changes. It gets quieter. It gets harder. It becomes less about control and more about being the lighthouse. You don't chase ships around the ocean screaming, come back, come back, come back. You stand there, you stay lit, and you make sure they know where the safe harbor is. Even if they don't come back today, even if they don't come back tomorrow, next month, next year, even if they've been told the rocks are home, you stay lit. That's the price. That's fatherhood. Not perfect, not pretty, not always rewarded, but real. And one day, maybe the child looks back, not because they were forced, not because they were manipulated, not because someone won, but because life has a funny way of revealing who was consistent, who stayed, who tried, who paid the price without handing them the bill. And if that day comes, you don't need a speech. You don't need revenge. You don't need to say, I told you so. You just open the door because you're dad, and the door was never locked in the first place.